I personally feel that writing fiction book is way difficult than non-fiction because even I was a writer in my childhood. I used to write random stuff, whatever I used to feel. But I feel again fiction is very difficult because you have to create that whole world entirely yourself. So how did you do that?
As I told you from the beginning, I'm a very dreamy person. I love being in my dreamland. I have a very different perspective of life in my dreamland, okay? So what I do is when I start dreaming like, okay, I wish my life was like this, I wish my life was like that. So that's when, these thoughts will start flowing into my head. And you're going to be really surprised. I get up at 4 a.m. and at that time those thoughts are like really ready to come out. I get up and I immediately start typing, writing whatever it is. Then I pull out my old journals. I'll compare where I can fix the story, and it just fuses into a story. But yes, fiction is not easy. I have my own biography written. Okay, I already wrote it. But then I'm like, okay, should I publish it? What are people going to think? And then I'm like, let's hold it for some time. And I left it at that. But yes, you're right. Fiction is way difficult. It's like make the truth a little more different.
Hello everyone and welcome back to Page of Pandora. I was thinking today about how we all start out with these versions of ourselves that we think the world wants to see, and then at some point we start peeling those layers back to find who we actually are. Today's guest Rheaa Noor is someone who seems to do that professionally. She's poet and author, but more than that, she's someone who looks for the truth in the quiet moment. Yeah, I wanted to have you on this podcast, not to just talk about what you have written, but to talk about the person behind those pages. So, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks so much. Thank you so much, Ariba. It really means a lot to come here.
It's a pleasure talking to you. So, I
It
want
was
to
mine,
start.
and I mean, we finally made it, and I'm glad we're here today.
Yeah, your schedule is quite packed. I can understand that.
I lead two lives, so I can't help it.
I understand. So, I want to start from the very beginning. I'm really curious about this. Did you always think you would become a writer, or did life just slowly push you here?
Okay, so let me be very honest with you. I never thought I would be a writer, okay? I always loved writing, like, because I'm more of a person who loves living in her dreamland. I think it's not to get away from the harsh reality, but to involve that reality into the pages. Okay, so that's how I started writing. And I started writing, I think, when I was a kid, and I used to study in a convent school. So obviously in convents we have to write journals, we have to write our feelings, thoughts, and one action that you do for a day, and stuff like that. So that's how I landed up writing. So I used to write pages and pages in my journal. Sometimes it used to be a funny poetry. It used to just be 3 lines or 4 lines. One very funny poem would come out, or a detailed story about what I dreamt of and things like that. And that's how I started writing. And I never, ever, ever thought in my life I would publish. I'm being very honest with you. I never, ever thought of that.
Wow, and you ended up publishing so many books at the same time.
Yeah, so see, I had the stories already ready. Okay, I have my journals, I have everything. It's like uh, almost 2.5 decades of collections of stories and poems I have with me. Okay, obviously, yes, I refine it now when I put it up and stuff like that. It's not that I just simply publish it. I obviously read through it again, I make changes, I fictionalize it a little bit more. That's why I think, when in compared to the other authors who take years to write, I'm kind of a little ahead on that mark, but it's not that I'm doing it purposely. It's because I do have stories ready. I thought, okay, why not let the world know what I have written, what I wrote as a kid, and now I have done.
Right. Wow, that's quite nice. So, I noticed that writing is your shelter. You have mentioned this in your bio, so that really hit home for me. So, when things get loud or messy in the real world, so do you find yourself disappearing into just your stories just to find a bit of peace?
See, it's like a refuge for me, okay? I generally start writing when I'm not able to sort myself out, when I'm overthinking too many things, or there are too many thoughts that are coming in my head and I'm not able to figure out what needs to be done. So it's like, to give clarity to the thinking and, kind of sorting the process out instead of being a mess. I was a mess. I'm not going to lie. I was a mess. So to sort that mess out, I generally start writing. And why I write is because I'm like, okay, I can, clarify my thoughts. I can sort the situation. I may react better or bad. And so when I started writing, it kind of actually helped me even more. So, yes, one way it's a refuge, one way it's clarifying my thought process, and in another way it's kind of leaking secrets that I can't talk to people about. So, that way.
Wow, because I personally feel that writing fiction book is way difficult than non-fiction, because even I was a writer in my childhood. I used to write random stuff, whatever I used to feel. But I feel
Hmm.
again fiction is very difficult because you have to create that whole world entirely yourself. So how did you do that?
Okay, so Ariba, as I told you from the beginning, I'm a very dreamy person. I love being in my dreamland. I have a very different perspective of life in my dreamland, okay? So what I do is when I start dreaming, like, okay, I wish my life was like this, I wish my life was like that. So that's when, these thoughts will start flowing into my head. And you're going to be really surprised. I get up at 4 a.m. and at that time, those thoughts are like really ready to come out. I get up and I immediately start typing, writing whatever it is. Then I pull out my old journals. I'll compare where I can fix the story, and it just fuses into a story. But yes, fiction is not easy. I have my own biography written, okay? I already wrote it. But then I'm like, okay, should I publish it? What are people going to think? And then I'm like, let's hold it for some time. And I left it at that. But yes, you're right. Fiction is way difficult. It's like, you make the truth a little more different. You different it to, like, you kind of spin it with a little more, like how they say, you put a lot of masalas in a story. It's
Yes.
like that. And you need to do it. And you have to think like the wildest things in your head. So
Yeah.
that way.
I really like your book, The Blame on the Wedding. It was so good, like a desi romance. Like it was good.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So, blame it on the wedding season happened at a colleague's wedding. Okay, I was attending that wedding and I had seen two of my other colleagues fall in love, and I'm like, this is not supposed to be happening. Like, how did this even happen? Like, two extreme different professionals. Okay, one a perfectionist, A to Z. Like, I've learned a lot of stuff from her. And here, this man is the one who used to make it so cool, would always be like, hey, Ree, chill, man, what are you doing? And stuff like that. And I'd be like, bro, I can't chill. I have to work. Like, chill, it's okay. So, he made my life easier in one way, whereas she used to be like, no, you need to do this, detail this out, do this, do this. And, so when I saw both of them falling in love, I was like, wow. Seriously, wow.
Wow. So is it completely inspired by the real life events of yours, right?
Yes, most of my stories are a part of my real life that have happened to me, and that's how I land up writing them.
Wow. Cool. So there's a line in your bio about trusting silence. That is so hard to do. So was there a specific moment in your life where you realized that silence actually tells a better story than words ever could?
Yes, so there was this very, we all go through phases in life, and there was this one very difficult phase that I went through. Not one, I do go through, but one of it was like the most miserable one that I went through. And every time I would try, like, protecting myself or defending myself to be more precise, I would be put down immediately. And that kind of started affecting me, and that's when I started becoming silent. I stopped reacting. Like, if somebody would tell me, you're like this, I'd be like, and I would go. Because I couldn't, because I realized that if I said anything or I tried defending myself, it wouldn't work. Nobody would accept the fact. Okay? So that's when I started trusting my silence, and I realized that, okay, I can build. And I would be like waiting for the chance to hit the hammer. And that's how I started becoming even more silent. And yes, when I'm silent, I start thinking things and I start writing immediately. So that's how the whole tandem works for me. It had to be that way for me because, sometimes life teaches you things in a very different way. Okay, everything is not going to be served in a silver platter to you. So it's like, expect the unexpected. I'm a chatterbox. Okay, by nature, I'm a chatterbox. I can yak 24/7. You can ask any of my friends and they will tell you that she can't keep quiet. That's how I am. But when that phase happened, I started changing. I started becoming silent because I realized my silence was my own solace for me. So I had to trust it. That if I'm going to be silent now, it's going to keep my peace of mind okay.
Yeah,
And
right.
that's how it is.
I can understand because we, at some point of life, we all go through that phase, right?
Yeah.
So, in your story about the magical library, the building literally reacts when someone tells the truth. So, if you were sitting
Yes.
in that,
It would tremble actually. The library would be like, oh my god, Rheaa opened up her mouth. Like, seriously? So it would start trembling. There'd be more books falling out.
oh my god, cool.
Because Rheaa is a person who prefers preserving peace than getting into a fight. Okay? Knowing that kind of a side of me, I have kept a lot of things that I'm going to be taking to the grave. Okay? So if I was sitting in that library right now, it's definitely going to start trembling. Like, oh my god, it's going to get like a shock of its own life.
Right. So you write about the courage to keep choosing oneself. I think we all struggle with that. So does writing these characters who have to choose between what is expected and what they actually want help you figure out your own path?
So somewhere it's like, you're doing a combination and fermentation and you're trying to figure out which character, where and what. So I'm trying to tell the truth in the most simple and honest way I can. But then what happens is, then I realize there's an expectation from someone that, okay, this could be like this or this could be like that. So I would have a colleague read up something and then my colleague would be like, hey, can you do this? And then my son, for example, would read it up and he'd be like, Mama, can you do this? And so in all combinations of everybody, I sometimes am like, okay, fine, then let's make a new character. So I mix the personalities, okay? And that's how I have my own it sits well with everybody.
Right. So if you could go back to the version of you that had not published anything yet, the one who was still just launching and becoming, so what is the one thing you would tell her about the path ahead?
Not to look for validation, not to look for the sales, not to look for any of the applause or anything. Just go forward, girl. Just look straight and go ahead. Don't think how many people are validating what you write. Don't think about the applause or the sales of your books. Just keep writing. One day you will reach your goal.
Wow, that is going to stay with me forever.
I truly believe in that. See, I think you've read my Lanterns for the Dark as well as When Silence Roared. So those two poetry books, when I had written, I was at the worst in my life. Okay, my emotions were so I was overwhelmed with them. Okay, so when I wrote them, I didn't know if I was the experience that I want to share with people, whether I've lived it or not, in material of that. True personality. So that is that side of me too. Who has her 9 to 6 job, who lives that kind of a life, where I'm a complete fictional character. This is some